All right, everyone. Ready for a deep dive into something we're all interested in, right? Happiness.
Yeah, happiness.
But we're going deeper than just like, those good vibes.
Right.
Really unpacking what it means to live a fulfilling life.
And it's interesting because it's not just like a fluffy concept anymore.
Right.
I mean, there's real research around happiness.
Oh, yeah.
Like serious research economists, philosophers are weighing in now.
Totally. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to be looking at this research article from the Journal of Mental Health Issues and Behavior called The Spirit of Happiness, the Universal Manifestation of Life.
Okay.
And we're also going to be like looking at this World Happiness Report that comes out.
Yeah.
Kind of digging into some of the like paradoxes and stuff that it brings up.
Yeah, some of the things that don't quite make sense on the surface when you
Okay.
look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we get too far, how does this research article actually define happiness?
Well, it says happiness is the manifestation of positive contemplation and consciousness.
So it's not just like feeling good.
Yeah.
There's like a real cognitive element to it.
It really is. It's like an active state, you know?
Right.
It's something we create through our thoughts and actions.
Okay.
It's more than just contentment, you know? Positive emotions,
Hmm.
like a way of thinking that focuses on the good.
Interesting. So it's not just like what happens to us, but how we choose to see it,
Exactly.
how we choose to interpret those experiences. What do you think, listener? Does that resonate with you?
You know,
Your own understanding of happiness?
now let's talk about this World Happiness Report.
Okay.
You probably heard of this. It's this annual ranking of countries
Yeah.
based on happiness.
I always find it so fascinating.
Yeah,
But also kind of like, how do they even measure that
right.
on a global scale?
It's complicated. There's no doubt about that. But there's 6 key factors
Okay.
that they look at: GDP per capita, social support, healthy life expectancy, generosity, perceptions of corruption, and freedom to make life choices.
Okay. So it's like economic indicators, social factors, freedom.
Yeah.
Okay. But how much weight do they give to people's actual feelings
Right.
about their lives?
Right.
Because ultimately, happiness is so personal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why they emphasize subjective well-being,
Okay.
which is basically people rating their own happiness on a scale. So that self-reported data is critical.
It has to be.
Right.
Because who knows better than you how happy you are?
Right.
So, we talk about this paradox.
Yeah.
This is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Finland.
Yeah.
They are consistently ranked as one of the happiest countries
Always up there.
year after year.
Yeah.
But in the research article, they cite some things that kind of go against that.
Yeah.
That image of like, blissful Nordic living.
Totally.
And so this is where I was kind of scratching my head. Like apparently Finland also has relatively high rates of antipsychotic prescriptions, alcohol consumption, and even things like murder and suicide rates.
Right. And this is all according to this British journalist, Michael Booth, in his book, The Almost Nearly Perfect People.
Right.
And it seems to go against, this whole reputation of Finland as like this haven of happiness.
Yeah. So are the Finns secretly miserable?
Right.
Even though they're like topping the charts? Or is there something else going on here?
Yeah, that is the question, isn't it?
Right.
And that's why we need to go a little bit deeper than those 6 factors in the report.
Right.
Like what other things might contribute to their well-being, even with these challenges.
Okay, let's get into that. What does the research tell us about all the stuff that goes into happiness,
Yeah.
particularly in a place like Finland?
Well, one of the biggest things is social relationships.
Okay.
This is huge, strong social connections are so important for well-being no matter where you live.
So even if you're dealing with difficult things personally,
Yeah.
like having good friends and family can really make a difference.
It can make all the difference.
Yeah.
And here's where it gets interesting. Our individual temperament also plays a role. Like our genes can actually influence our mood and how we react to life events.
So some people are just like naturally more cheerful, and some people are maybe a little more like melancholic.
Exactly. It's like we all have a different happiness blueprint, But that doesn't mean we're stuck with what we're born with.
Okay, good. So there's still room for growth.
Absolutely. And a key concept here is adaptation.
Okay.
Humans are really resilient.
Okay.
We tend to go back to a baseline level of happiness even after big life changes,
Right.
good or bad.
So like winning the lottery would be great,
Yeah.
but then eventually I'd just be back to my normal
Yeah.
level of happiness.
Pretty much, yeah. It's kind of a bummer, but it's also kind of reassuring.
Yeah.
Because it means we're not just at the mercy of, outside circumstances forever.
Right.
And money is important, of course, especially when you're talking about basic needs.
Yeah.
But it's interesting how it's impact on happiness decreases as wealth increases.
So there's a certain point where more money doesn't actually equal more happiness.
Right. It makes you think about what you really value.
Totally.
And the research shows that if you focus on money over love and relationships, it can really hurt your happiness.
Hmm.
You got to have a balance.
Yeah.
The article also talks about things like environmental equality and social capital, that feeling of trust and belonging in your community.
Yeah. It's kind of like happiness is less about like chasing achievements and more about like cultivating a way of life.
You got it. And it's not just external factors either. It's our thoughts and attitudes too.
Okay, I'm listening. What are some of the things on the inside that contribute to happiness?
Well, there's a whole field of study called positive cognition,
Okay.
and it's about how we focus our attention,
Hmm.
how we interpret things, how we remember things.
Wow.
So basically, if you focus on the good things in life, your happiness can actually increase.
So basically, like, look for the silver lining.
Exactly.
I love it.
And of course, we can't forget about physical health. It's hard to be happy when you don't feel well.
Yeah.
Good health helps us feel alive and engaged with the world.
This is really painting a much more like holistic picture.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about one or two things. It's about all these things.
Yeah.
Our social lives, the environment, our mindset, our physical well-being.
It's all connected. It's like weaving a tapestry,
Yeah.
all these threads come together to create the big picture.
Love it. And I'm sure there's more threads.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, tell me more. What else are we adding to this tapestry of happiness?
Well, there's a whole bunch of research about helping others,
Okay.
how it actually makes us happier.
Right.
So it's not just good for the world.
Yeah.
It's good for us too.
I feel like I've noticed that when
Yeah.
I like volunteer or do something kind for somebody,
Yeah.
it does give you like a little boost.
It's like it's rewarding to contribute to something bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
And speaking of finding meaning,
Okay.
the research also talks about creativity and productivity. Doing things that challenge us,
Right.
allowing us to express ourselves,
Yeah.
that can really boost happiness.
So like finding your passion and honing your skills and like creating stuff
Yeah.
can make you happier.
It can. It all comes back to purpose. And speaking of purpose, this is where it gets really interesting.
Right?
We got to look at the philosophical and spiritual perspectives.
Right. Because I'm always fascinated by like how different schools of thought approach this idea of happiness.
Yeah, well, philosophically, happiness is often seen as this triangulation of scope, virtue, and responsibility.
Okay, we'll break that down for me.
Okay, basically it means that real happiness involves living a virtuous life, taking responsibility for your actions,
Right.
and understanding that your happiness is affected by outside stuff, but not completely determined by it.
So it's like finding that sweet spot between striving for what you want,
Yeah,
but also accepting the things you can't control.
exactly.
Yeah.
Now, on the flip side, you've got the spiritual view of happiness. A lot of spiritual traditions see happiness as like an unconditional state of joy that comes from within.
Yeah.
It doesn't depend on what's happening outside of you.
More like a peace.
Yes, exactly. Like inner peace.
Contentment no matter what.
Yeah. And their article mentions this book called In the Spirit of Happiness
Okay.
by these monks, the monks of New Skeet.
Cool.
And they're big on things like self-discipline, solitude, prayer forgiveness. Like all these practices can lead to this lasting happiness.
I love how these different perspectives are all like unique,
Yeah,
but it kind of all work together
they do.
to give us this full picture of happiness.
Yeah,
Like one's about balance between internal and external.
yeah,
The other's more about inner peace,
yeah.
detachment from the outside world. What does it all mean for us, though?
Good question.
Like trying to live our lives and be happy.
Well, one of the big takeaways is that happiness isn't a destination. It's a journey.
Yeah.
It's something we create through the choices we make, the habits we build, and our mindset.
It's like tending a garden.
Yes, exactly.
You got to plant the right things, nurture them,
Yeah,
and kind of adjust to the changing seasons.
exactly. And just like there are many different kinds of gardens,
Right.
there are many paths to happiness.
Yeah.
It's about finding what works for you,
Right.
trying things out and making adjustments.
Yeah. What I find really encouraging is this shift away from just focusing on economics like GDP
Yeah,
to including like well-being
totally.
in how we measure progress as a society.
Yeah, it's acknowledging that happiness is more than just money.
Right.
It goes way beyond material wealth.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about how people tend to go back to their baseline level of happiness
Yeah,
after like major events.
right.
Does that mean we're all kind of just stuck?
It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Yeah. Like, what's the point of trying to change
Yeah.
if we're just going to end up back where we started?
Is it all predetermined? It's a big question, and it makes us think about how much control we really have,
Yeah.
over our own happiness.
Right.
If we know we adapt to good and bad things,
Yeah.
does that mean we can make choices that lead to more happiness,
Okay.
even if it's not like constant bliss?
Yeah, that's a good point. So maybe it's not about chasing those highs,
Yeah,
but it's more about like a deeper sense of contentment
exactly.
and resilience.
Yes, being able to deal with whatever life throws at you.
Yeah, because life's going to throw stuff at you.
Oh, yeah. It's about building that strong foundation
Right.
that can weather any storm.
And speaking of design,
Right.
we're learning that happiness is changing how we view societal progress.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're moving past just looking at GDP.
Right.
We're looking at things like social support, freedom,
Yeah.
generosity
Exactly.
as signs of a good society.
It's about more than just how rich a country is.
Right,
It's
yeah.
about how happy the people are.
Yeah. So the World Happiness Report really comes in handy here.
Yeah. It does. It's like saying, hey, money isn't everything.
Right.
We need to look at how people are feeling,
Yeah.
how connected they are,
Uh-huh.
how much freedom and support they have.
Yeah. And those 6 factors we talked about
Yeah.
show us that happiness has a lot of different sides.
It does. It's complex.
Yeah. It's about building a society where people feel supported,
Yeah.
connected,
Uh-huh.
free to make their own choice.
Exactly. And that brings up a question for you, listener.
Yeah.
Where does your country rank
Mm.
in the World Happiness Report? It's worth checking out,
Yeah.
thinking about.
This whole conversation has been really interesting
It has.
because it's kind of like flipped the script
Yeah.
on what it means to live a good life.
Yeah. I think it comes down to this.
Okay.
Happiness isn't something you just find.
Right.
It's something you make.
Okay.
It's a process of understanding yourself,
Yeah.
nurturing your relationships, finding meaning in what you do,
Yeah.
and contributing to something bigger than yourself.
It's like a recipe
It is.
with all these different ingredients.
Yeah, you got your social connections, your values, your spiritual practices.
It's amazing how they all come together
They do.
to create your own unique happiness.
Yeah.
And I think knowing that we adapt to things,
Yeah.
whether they're good or bad,
Right.
can actually be a good thing.
It can.
It means that even when things are tough,
Yeah.
we can bounce back.
It can.
And that resilience,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
ability to find joy, even when things are hard,
Right.
that's maybe the most important ingredient of all. Yeah, it really does feel like we've been looking at happiness in a whole new way.
Yeah.
Not just like a feeling, but something bigger,
Yeah.
you know?
It's part of us and part of society.
Yeah.
It's about understanding how it works and making choices that make us happier.
And realizing that we actually have more control than we think.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah.
This has been really interesting. Like,
Hmm.
we've learned so much about happiness,
We have.
different ways of looking at it,
Mm.
the research behind it,
Yeah.
and hopefully we all understand a little bit more about living a good life.
Exactly. Remember, this is just the start.
Yeah.
I mean, keep exploring.
Right.
Go check out that World Happiness Report.
Yeah.
See where your country ranks.
Right.
And think about what really matters to you.
Yeah. What are their happiness ingredients?
Yeah.
We'd love to hear what you think.
Yeah.
Like, what were your big takeaways from this deep dive?
What stuck with you?
Yeah. Share your thoughts with us online.